Me, Mom.
Yes?
Hello, it's Laurel.
Good morning.
Good morning, me, Mom. How are you?
Oh, Laurel.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
It's my birthday today.
Oh, your birthday.
Yes.
Honey, will you ever forgive me? Ever forgive me?
Oh, me, Mom. I'm calling just to talk to you on my birthday, that's all.
I love you. I love you dearly, honey. I just wish you good luck. Good luck and good health.
Thank you.
Today is the 28th of July.
Yes.
Okay, dear. I shall never forget it. Oh, honey. I can't wait until your father calls me so I can tell him.
Okay. I love you.
I love you so much, too. Honey, I love you dearly.
My grandmother, Belle Greenberg, lived for 94 years. The last 11 were in the Philadelphia Geriatric Center. She had 2 sons and 3 granddaughters. It wasn't until 3 months before she died that she was able to tell her older son, my father, that she didn't want to be in the nursing home, that what she really wanted was to be with him. All her life, what was most important to my grandmother was taking care of family.
Well, she always said to me, now, don't forget to look after your brother. I mean, you're supposed to look after people in your family.
But when it came time for her to be taken care of, well, times had changed. The logical people to take care of her, my father, his brother, or perhaps even myself or my 2 sisters, were not able or chose not to do this. So the Philadelphia Geriatric Center became and remained her final caretaker. My grandmother first lived in her own apartment in the York House in an assisted living arrangement. Eventually, when she needed more care, she moved to the Levine Building, a nursing home area with shared rooms and round-the-clock supervision. Philadelphia is the city where my grandmother had lived most of her life, where my parents had grown up and married, and where I had grown up. In 1983, when Mimam began her stay at the center, she was 83 years old and returning to Philadelphia from living a comfortable, retired life in Miami Beach for 23 years. She was moving back to be close to her family. At the time, I was 25 and living in New York, but my parents and my younger sisters were still in Philadelphia, still in the house where I grew up. Within 4 years, everything changed. My sisters moved away, one to work and the other to college, and my parents sold our house and became retired snowbirds, summering in Massachusetts and wintering in, of all places, Florida. In such a short time, a very small, very close family had fragmented across the country, leaving my grandmother alone in Philadelphia. Over the following years, my parents sometimes attempted to move Mimam back to Florida near them, but it never quite worked out. And though I was in close touch with both my parents and Mimam, I wasn't involved in their decisions about her care. Then, in 1993, I decided I wanted to be more involved. I was 35, living in Boston, and feeling more responsible and more concerned about Mimam being alone in Philadelphia. But the motivation for my decision really began with the tapes.
Marvin's taking movies of you.
Hey, Mom.
Marvin's taking movies of you. He wants you to say something.
Oh, what should I say? Something?
Tell them about tell Stanley.
Song and dance? How about a song and dance?
With his recently acquired video camera, my father began taping his visits with me, Mom, so he could later show them to me and my sisters.
Hey, Mom, do you want to give a message to any of the girls?
A message to the girl, tell her I love them all. And I don't see them enough, but I can't help it. They don't live in the same city now anymore, so you can't expect them to come. And it's a hardship.
Here's Mom entering her room.
At first, I enjoyed watching the tapes. It was almost like visiting her. But then I began to get upset.
It's nice and cool in here.
Yeah, it is nice and cool. Comfortable, huh? You like it in here?
Very good.
You like this place, Mom?
Huh?
Do you like this place? Do you like it here?
It's really nice.
What do you like about it?
This place,
Yeah.
the people, and even the help are good. And they're all nice people. And they don't bother you. You can sit wherever you want to sit, or you want to walk. We walk to that big room in the end of this hallway. It's tremendous. It's beautiful, and they got all that property. They're so rich. Oh, listen, after all, it's comfortable. It's very comfortable. They got a chair there, and you can have all the chairs you want.
Okay, let's see you walk.
What was upsetting was watching their interaction.
Let's see a smile. A smile. Looks pretty good. How about that?
My grandmother protecting my father from her feelings, and my father not being able to see through her evasions. But it was not the first time that my grandmother had hidden her unhappiness from my father. 10 years earlier, when she first moved into the York house, she resorted to a drastic measure in place of verbalizing her feelings.
I wasn't picking up on it, and she didn't tell me. So she was getting more down, angry and down, depressed. One day she put towels at the door and turned on the gas in her apartment. And they discovered it, and I think she didn't really intend to commit suicide, but it was a signal. She must have been angry about something, and I think it was that I wasn't doing enough for her. But she never said that she wanted someone to do more. She just got angrier and angrier and depressed.
Now, my father was a psychiatrist by profession. If she had been a patient of his, would he have detected her crisis sooner? Did being a psychiatrist matter in the scope of a lifelong relationship of mother and son?
Hey, Mom. Mom? The girls would like to know more about your mother and grandmother.
I'll tell them to go soak their heads. How do I know?
As I continued to watch my father's videotapes, I couldn't help but wonder if my grandmother was again angry and depressed. And I feared she might be headed for another crisis. I felt compelled to get involved. I had this notion I could intervene and become Mimam's translator. I was going to show my father what my grandmother was really trying to say.
Look at all the paraphernalia. How did he get it here?
She carried it.
Did he drive?
She on a train.
My parents were on their way from their house in Nantucket to their condo in Florida. They stopped to visit Mimam twice a year.
So what's it like to see her like this, Dad?
Well, she's coming out of it, but she's down today.
Hasn't she got a car?
Yeah, but it was a long drive, and it was easier to take.
I don't have to stay at these places. Give her the money instead to have a car. She has to drag all that stuff out heavy.
Yeah, it is pretty heavy.
Imagine how she had to go all that distance.
She still don't know he or she.
This egg was made last year sometime. And then you can go to Florida when you feel like going and come back. Maybe I'll die in the meantime.
How have things been here? How have things been here?
And in this hospital.
Yeah. Would you like to go somewhere else?
I don't know. Where can I go?
Well, there are lots of places you could go.
Who do you suggest?
Well, I'll look around down in Florida, and we'll be in touch with you more.
So I'll stay here.
For a while, yes.
For a while.
Well, I don't know what's been happening here, but I think that she missed seeing us. I think that when we're not...
You miss seeing us. You feel isolated here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'd feel better closer to you.
Yeah.
Closer to you. See, I'm not...
She finally said what I had thought was on her mind. Such a simple sentence. I think I'd feel better closer to you. And yet it had taken so long to say. And my dad seemed to get it, so that was a breakthrough. But I was left with more questions than answers. What was it about their relationship that made it so hard for my grandmother to admit that she needed my father? And why did my father need her to verbalize that which seemed so obvious from her mood and her body language? These questions nagged at me. Maybe it was because I saw some of these traits in myself, but I needed to understand the actions of these two very important people in my life. What had happened in their past to bring us all to this point?
She was born in the Ukraine, in Russia, in a little town called Rakitna. She was the youngest. She had an oldest brother, Harry, and this next brother, Sam. They came over in 1900. They came to Philadelphia.
And my father was originally a greenhorn. Well, you couldn't even talk English. He gets a job.
What did he speak? Yiddish? Russian?
I don't guess, sure, whatever he could. He learned a few words of English, and he wind up talking Jewish to everybody.
Jewish meaning Yiddish?
Yiddish.
Yiddish.
Yes, your mother was one of my dearest cousins. And one day, she and her friend took my brother Joe and me to the movies. But not having very much money, we had to sit up in the gallery. And the thing that worried her is that I was fat, and if there should be a fire, she'd have to carry me. So she proceeded to carry me up the stairs, just in case.
My father, his family came over from Romania, a town called Galați. And he went through school and became a pharmacist.
My grandmother married Louis Greenberg in June of 1922. She was 21 years old.
There was a child that was born, a perfectly wonderful, beautiful child whose name was Harris.
I had a brother that had died right before I was born at the age of 2, which I think affected my mother considerably in her life. She was grieving over this son that was lost. Incidentally, the doctor's prescription for the loss of the son was to get pregnant again, and so I was the prescription for the malady.
But Marvin was good. He had 3 children and 3 girls to boot. I think that's wonderful. And now he'll always have a place to go to. He'll always come to his daughter's place. That's good. It's always good. You have a daughter. My mother used to say, "You'll be sorry you didn't have any daughters. You'll be sorry."
But you're not sorry now.
But she would have enjoyed it.
I think she would have wanted a daughter. I think that in that society, the daughters were the carriers of the flame, or the tradition. And the daughters were the ones that took care and kept the house and cared. They were the caretakers. So that if you wanted to be taken care of, it would be good to have a daughter. She was a good daughter to her mother. And even though my father was a good son to his parents, they lived with his sister.
All the men in the family came to live with Mother because she took care of them. It was family. At the time, I didn't think it was unusual, but when I look at it now, look back on it, what an unusual thing it was for her to be nurturing these men who would come home from work. They ate there, they slept there, she took care of their clothes, all the things that went with it.
And on top of that, she was taking care of her mother, and that was really a superhuman job, and she did a great job.
She did take her mother in when her mother became ill. Took her mother and her father in. I mean, I've talked to many people who really feel that she was a great benefactor for them. Now, being a child of hers, sometimes that help was oppressive and confining and resented.
I almost used to see her with a halo. To me, she was everything. She was better than my mother to me, closer than my mother.
I just remember she was pretty, and I remember her red hair, and she'd say, "Margie," and that was kind of fun. I mean, whenever I was with her, she made a big fuss, so she was probably my favorite aunt.
I, like my cousins Leona and Margie, adored my grandmother's care and affection. But for my father, it was different.
Felt incapacitating, that she would do it for you. And we really didn't need her to do so much, so that I have a reluctance sometimes to do things for people, preferring that if they can handle it, they do it themselves. And that I try to find a balance, and it's not always correct, so that I do things for people, but I also don't do things for people when I feel that it's better for them to do it for themselves. And hopefully I get the signals right.
I know this side of my father, and growing up, I felt that even though he was always there to help me, he wanted me to do as much for myself as I could. I think this helped build independence in me as a child. But what happens if his balance, as he says, is off, and he doesn't get the signals right? I never got to see where my father grew up. The neighborhood had been torn down years ago.
This neighborhood was a very old neighborhood in the center of the city, which had lost its affluent population and had gone downhill. My father's pharmacy, and where we lived above it, was right here at 8th and Noble on the northeast corner. Of course, everything has changed. My father had long hours. The drugstore was open at 9:15 in the morning till 11:45 at night. My mother would say, "See how hard your father works? You don't want to become a pharmacist." So we were discouraged from becoming pharmacists, and we were encouraged to become doctors. And so we did.
We were married on Friday afternoon, and then Sunday we had this wedding reception at the Park Drive Manor where we were living.
It was 1955, and my mother, who had an evangelical Christian upbringing, was marrying a Jewish psychiatrist. Her own mother didn't go to the wedding.
I don't remember feeling like an outsider or anything. It seemed very easy to be a part of the whole family. Everybody was wonderful. So I think if she'd have been negative about me, that maybe the others would have been not so friendly. But since she was like the head of the clan, so it was, when she approved of me and accepted me and everything, then everybody went along in the boat. Then Pappy died January 1st, 1959. So then she came to stay with us. So being with us and being able to help take care of you as a baby was very good for her.
And I used to love this. As soon as I said that little song, your little feet would go and start to dance, you know, and you feel it on the leg.
What was that one?
Tanzen, tanzen, Mädel.
But how about the other one? Hakat Sika Naka.
Mama, yeah, Zisa, Mama. I had no way of outlet for my love for you. I used to love to hug you and kiss you, Well, what should I say? Where are the years gone by? Where are the years gone by? They're gone. They're gone for me. You can't live it. You have to go. You see what happens? You get old, you get sad.
After my father died, when she had to manage things herself, she was very enterprising. She invested her money carefully, and she arranged to have a roommate in Florida, and she bought herself an apartment, and she had a place down the seashore, which she managed. So she did very well.
Me Mom was about 60 at this point. For the next 23 years, she lived primarily in Miami Beach. She had a lot of friends to spend her time with. She volunteered at an old age home. She visited us up north, and we visited her. She saved her money. She even invested in the stock market. And once, she traveled with a tour group to Israel. By 1983, quite a few of her friends and relatives had either gotten sick, passed away, or gone into homes. She was becoming lonelier and more fragile.
She had a pair of running shoes. And she's an older woman, and she was trotting along and fell and broke her shoulder in Florida. And then it became difficult for her to manage things. There was a place in Philadelphia, and she knew about it, and we had looked at it before. She had a friend who was there, a friend that she liked.
Because my grandmother was still healthy, she had her own apartment. But help was available if she needed it, if she could accept it.
Here's this person who has always been a caregiver and, you know, doing for other people in the position of having to receive. And that was not easy for her, I'm sure.
At the time that she was depressed and not really asking for help. It was pretty frustrating. And I guess I was angry at the time that she turned the gas on. And so we had a fuss with each other. And I said, I'm going to take you to my hospital. She says, go ahead, take me to your hospital. I think she sort of got out some of her anger, which she had sort of pushed back with her. And so that was the beginning of our resolving this issue of my taking over more responsibility and her giving it over.
But it was a few years later, in 1987, when my parents, looking to make the most of their senior years, decided to retire, leave Philadelphia, and move to Florida.
We had brought her up from Florida to be with us, and now we're going back to Florida, and she's going to be left up here. So it wasn't easy to do this. And we made the move, considering that if she managed with our trips through Philadelphia twice a year, and with any extra trip that we thought was important to do, but then I would talk to her on the phone regularly.
Of course, I regret now that I didn't try to bring her to Florida when we first moved there. But at that point in time, she was doing better. She seemed happy at the York House. She was still in her own apartment. And she didn't want to come.
And to just pluck her out of there and put her in another place, although she easily made friends, she could have done it. I don't blame her for not wanting to do it.
If I were living in your place, all I could do is go to the elevator and you put yourself down on there and you go and you walk by yourself. Here, there's other people walking, and it's nicer. It's more pleasant. You're not so alone.
Right.
In another few years' time, Mom moved out of the York House and into the Levine building, the nursing home area. She was 90 now, and although she was still mentally clear and fairly ambulatory, she needed the extra care of the nursing staff.
Tell me how they put you in the tub.
Yeah.
How?
You get on the chair.
Yeah.
Sit down on the chair.
Right.
And then it removes you. It moves high, and then it lowers you.
Into the water.
Into the water.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Perhaps because she was more physically dependent, she placed more importance than ever on the relationships she had with her peers.
She had a roommate. She was helping the roommate. The roommate used to think great of her. So that, in a sense, gave her a feeling of her worth.
How do you feel today? Better?
A little better.
Yeah, you look nice. You have your hair done?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Did you go downstairs yesterday?
Yeah, I had mine done yesterday.
Yeah, just
And
poured this hair.
I told her,
Yeah,
as soon as
she
that,
does poured.
shorten it.
Of course, when I was little, I was her son, and even when I was grown, I was her son.
This is a nice hallway.
Gradually, there became a shift of responsibility, and so I felt like she was more my sister. And then as she became more incapacitated, I felt like more like a parent.
When Mom was 92, my parents tried to move her to Florida. They flew her down for a visit.
She was supposed to have come for 2 weeks, and she wasn't too happy there and didn't stay the 2 weeks, but it was our idea to look for a place for her to a retirement community there so she'd be near us at least 7-8 months of the year.
She didn't want to look at any place, and in fact, she wanted to leave early. I'm not sure what that was all about. She seemed angry. I think she might have wanted to stay with us. I think that's what that might have been. Well, I feel sad when I could decipher that she wanted to be with us. I think that I got better at sensing that as we went along.
When I watched my father's videotapes, I felt my grandmother was in a crisis that my father didn't see. And when I brought my camera to Philadelphia in 1994 and recorded my grandmother expressing her desires to be closer to my father, I was hoping that he would see and would rush to her aid. This almost happened in that my parents did then resume the process of trying to move her to Florida.
Just before she died, we had the idea of really bringing her to Florida. And I was very excited about that idea. We did a lot of legwork. We looked at places, we got prices, we talked to her. She said then that she would like to come. And I felt very excited about the idea of her being in this beautiful place that was right up the road from us.
So we were actively still pursuing that when her condition worsened.
About a month later, the nursing home informed my family that me mom had extensive and untreatable cancer. My parents flew up to see her in December, and my sister Holly and I went in early January. We were the last family members to see her before she died. She was very weak and whispered only a few words. I told her how much I had learned from her over the years, and I think she understood what I was saying. Sometimes she smiled. 10 days later, she died alone in the nursing home.
You can't satisfy everybody's wish. I think she had a good life. Sure, would I have wanted it to be even better? Yes. So I'm not saddened that she expressed something that she couldn't have, because she was always reluctant to do that. So in a way, that was good, even though she couldn't have it.
How do we weigh our needs against the needs of others? How do we decide what to ask for and what to give? How can we fulfill our familial responsibilities in a modern society? I'm still struggling with these questions. And knowing that I will eventually be dealing with my aging parents, I'm trying to talk about it. And I'm trying to listen.
What do you think your ideas are about that?
What people should do or what we would do?
Yeah, you're gonna do.
Oh, well, I don't know what we're going to do. Right at the moment, we have 2 places we live, and we have arranged to have nursing care if we need it, but nothing definite. Maybe we'll move in with you.